Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Bolt City Podcast. Dave Palais, Josh Palais, Mario Heron, and joining us right now to start the show, it's Fernando Ramirez from the Sporting Tribune. And Fernando, thank you very much for joining us just a day after Christmas as we do this show. Appreciate your time. But I got to ask you, what was your feeling watching the Chargers with the new head coach and seeing the Giffer out there? What did it feel any different to you?
Well, thank you guys for having me on. As you guys can tell, I've been a little under the weather. I was actually not feeling too hot on Saturday. I was at the game though, but I was at first I'm like, are they really gonna pull this upset out? And I'm like standing there and I'm like, Buffalo, what are you guys doing? Like, you guys need to turn it on and do something. Like, you guys are fighting for the AFC East, you guys are fighting for a playoff, and these guys are obviously fighting for Gift Smith, but you saw a lot more fight. The defense was flying around. They really were able to neutralize a lot of what Buffalo did, but you got to give a lot of credit to Joe Brady and what he's done with that offense over with the Buffalo Bills. Ever since he took over, he's done a lot of different things, and I know James Cook didn't have that good of a game, but when they needed to, they put drives together. The offense woke up at one point, but then and Josh Allen said it after the game on that play to Stephon Diggs where Alohi Gilman intercepts it. He's like, I should have been better. I should have planted my feet and thrown it, not thrown it on the run. That's why it was underthrown. But other than that, I mean, Chargers showed a lot of fight, offense, defense, whoever the new head coach is, Ryan Ficken should be staying as a special teams coordinator. Like, you can't lose that guy. What he's done with this special teams unit is just you can't say enough about it, especially because when they first moved to LA, they were terrible in the special teams, and now they're one of the best units in there. Cameron Dicker's one of the best kickers in the NFL. But definitely very I was a little bit surprised that they fought so hard and they almost pulled that game out, but definitely, I mean, everybody loves Gift Smith. Gift Smith is loved around the building. Everybody likes him. So not surprised that they all fought for Gift Smith.
If you had the choice, Fernando, of the next head coach for the Chargers, who would you pick?
Jim Harbaugh. There's nobody.
Do you think there's a possibility? Do you think he's going to come to the Chargers?
See, this is the problem. And I've been painting this to people. This is the way I paint it. So I have cousins who work for my uncles. My uncles have companies. Cousins help them run it. When something goes wrong, who gets blamed? The employees. It's not going to be the son. It's not going to be any direct family member. It's always going to be the employees. And this is no different. That's why sometimes it's kind of hard to have your family running the team, especially if you're not doing a good job. It's hard for for a father to say it's my son's fault. No, they're going to look at everybody else. They're going to blame everybody else. So I think if Jim Harbaugh is brought in as a Chargers head coach, that would mean that one, they concede that Jim Harbaugh is going to choose his own general manager. He's going to come in. You're going to take a little bit of power away from your son and yourself, in a sense, and give that to Jim Harbaugh. That's another thing. And then three, you basically have to get out of Jim Harbaugh's way, open the checkbook and say, whatever you need, we're here, whatever draft picks, whatever you want, it is all yours. You run this show, go win us a Super Bowl. And that's essentially the three things that the Chargers would have to do. Are they willing to do that? I don't know. I don't know if they're willing to do that, just because we've heard what John Spano said, but there's one thing saying it and there's another thing doing it. So, but if I was them, I definitely would do it, especially after last night, seeing what the Baltimore Ravens have done, what another Harbaugh brother has done, what Jim has done in Michigan, what Jim has done. Jim has won everywhere he's been. Why wouldn't you want to bring in a winner? Why wouldn't you want to, especially after what I saw yesterday with the Kansas City Chiefs? That team is starting to go down a little bit. This division should have been the Chargers this year. If they would have been almost close to the exact team that they were last year, this division might have been theirs this year. But you need a difference maker. You need a head coach that can come in and shake things up, and he's gonna change the mentality, change the demeanor, change the culture of this team. And I think Jim Harbaugh would do exactly that. I think he would change everything that these guys do, and it'd be for the better, especially because now you might be able to see the full potential of what Justin Herbert with a good offensive play caller and that's another thing. Jim Harbaugh is going to bring in coaches that are going to do everything they need to do to get the best out of these players. So I just think the dynamic is just there. And I feel like if there was ever a time for you to do something that you have rarely ever done in your history, it's this: go out and get Jim Harbaugh and change not only your present, but your future. I mean, especially with what has happened in the past, I think this is a perfect time to do it. But we'll see if they actually all are all in on him the way you kind of hear the national media saying they are. But we'll see if that's true or not.
And like you said, like Harbaugh, I think it's a big splash. And dude, he himself will sell tickets. Like, like there's people that love Harbaugh and there's people that hate Harbaugh, and they're both going to go buy a ticket to go see him coach the Chargers. They're both going to go watch him freak out on the sidelines, wear cleats, and no one knows why he's wearing cleats. And he's like,
and khakis, gloves. Bro. Come on, those khakis.
Yeah, dude. I mean, the fits are nuts, and he's a nut job, but hell of a football coach. You mentioned the GM and Harbaugh potentially picking his GM. But let's just say they don't get Harbaugh. What are some GMs that you think the Chargers will be looking at? And what do you think like they'll be kind of looking for in the next GM spot?
I mean, you have to draft better than Tom Telesco did. And that's just the honest truth. And I'm being honest, like right now, everybody's been asking me about the Rams, and they're like, look at the Rams, look at how well they're doing. And my reaction to that is they're drafting well in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, undrafted free agents. But they're not only drafting well, they're coaching those guys up. That's exactly what you need to do. You need a GM that can come in here and kind of change things up. If I'm the Chargers, I'm only looking at GMs from teams that have been successful in the last few years. Baltimore's a team that's been successful since they've had, ever since they brought in Brian Billick, they won all the Super Bowls and all that. Yes, or that Super Bowl, the Super Bowl, and then obviously they relinquished it to John Harbaugh. But what I mean is like they've had a good structure for the last few years. Baltimore's a place, the Eagles is a place, Kansas City, the Rams, the 49ers. Like you have to go out and get somebody who's going to be a game changer, who comes from a stable organization that can change the outlook of the way you're going to draft, the way you're going to look at players, the way you can get free agents. That's the problem. And that's been the thing with the Chargers. That's why this team doesn't have the depth that many had hoped they would. It is because they have not drafted well in those later rounds. And yeah, they may hit one guy, but then the rest of them kind of aren't that good. You need to be able to hit consistently. And that's and I'm not even saying hit with like superstars. I'm saying guys that if one guy gets hurt, the next guy is not a huge drop off. You need guys that are coming in and can play as well. So that's kind of where I think they have to look at. What they're gonna look at, I don't know, because they say one thing, they could mean another. But if I was them, I would look at those 5 organizations and say, we need somebody who's been around this, who knows how this works. Again, like you said, if it's not Harbaugh, but that's just my opinion, to be honest.
No, we agree with you. We've said the same thing over the last few weeks when we're trying to go through potential GMs and what organizations you're stealing from, and going to Baltimore is a great call. I mean, they've been great, as far as their organization for over 20 years. Ozzie Newsome did a fantastic job. And then the guy who trained under Ozzie Newsome's now the GM now. He handed it off and it kept things going. And say whatever you want about the Baltimore Ravens. I know Mario hates them, but when you look at the Baltimore Ravens, they're honestly, you can make the argument for 20 years, the most physical team in the NFL. When you play the Ravens, and it sounds crazy to say it's a physical sport, but the Ravens are that team where, it's going to be different. You're going to feel it a little bit more than you feel it against other teams. That's what they have. That's the culture, like you were talking about, somebody to come in and change the culture.
And Dave, real quick, 2 guys that have been huge for that defense, they signed late in training camp or even during the season. Kyle Van Noy, Jadeveon Clowney, 2 guys that not a lot of teams wanted in the NFL, even though Kyle came off of a strong season back end of the season with the Chargers last year. But those are 2 guys, like the eye for talent that Baltimore has is unique. I mean, a lot of people were questioning Kyle Hamilton coming out because of his 40 time. And how many times haven't we seen the 40 time isn't what everybody thinks it is? And look at Kyle Hamilton. The dude's been a difference maker for Baltimore the last 2 years. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and as far as Van Noy goes, when he got to the Chargers, I said on this show to Josh and Mario, boy, maybe Belichick knew what he was doing. He doesn't look like the same guy. You know what it is? He got here and he got soft. He looked over and he saw Murray and said, "I just got to be better than that guy." And basically, the guys around me aren't guys I have to worry about. They aren't the same level of championship players. But guess what? You go to Baltimore and he's getting older and he was forced to raise the level of his game. And now combined with his football IQ and his ability to be in the right situation, he's on arguably the best team in football, completely different player than what he showed with the Chargers. And I know what you said. He finished hot last year, but it was too long before he showed what he could do. So my point is going back to this, and we try and go, okay, where are the Charger problems? Now, they got rid of 2 guys that we said they needed to get rid of. I kind of thought it was a BS move doing it with 3 games to go. You kind of put Gift Smith in a bad situation where he's not going to be the head coach next year. You just said everybody loves him. Is the new head coach going to want to keep him? The new head coach might come in and say, I don't want that guy because I have my own guy, and I know I can win with my own guy. So, he might be out of a job for just doing what he was told, to step in and walk to the podium and answer all the questions with your Southern accent and make everybody fall in love with you. And then you're shown the door. And next thing you know, you're looking for a suitcase too, because the new head coach doesn't want you around because other players in the locker room have made it clear they love you and I can't have a distraction. Anyway, that being said, what my point of this whole thing was getting to where things went bad for the Chargers. I'll go right back to the late 90s when John Spanos told his dad, I want to get in the family business. And he said, okay. Because your brother's getting in the family business, he's going to work in the front office. He goes, I'm not interested in the front office. I'm interested in what it takes to put a football team together, not as a coach, but as what a general manager does and what a scouting director does. Okay, what could the harm be? Here's an 18-year-old kid who has an interest in working in the family business. When he's not going to Wake Forest, he's coming back, he's working in the family business. Graduates from Wake Forest, he comes back, he's now working in the front office, and he's trying to determine which players the Chargers are going to draft. And he learned from guys like, if you want to say AJ Smith's guys, and then he went on and learned underneath Telesco to the point where his voice became more powerful than Telesco, and they were drafting guys that he recommended. But yet, as you said, when things go bad, man, I had nothing to do with it. That's not me. And then here he is, president of the team, right? Dude, the title's good enough. And there's a lot of heat coming out more and more. And I know you hear it too. Over the last 3 weeks, there's been a lot of heat of people pointing the finger directly at John. And maybe a half a year ago, people didn't even know that John Spanos had as much power as he did. But with all the heat that's coming out, is Dean man enough to say, son, the title of president is good enough? Just be happy with the title that you have. Let's cash the checks that come in before the season even starts of $437 million. The NFL gives us. You can sit in the owner's suite and you can take all the credit. I'll even let you hold the Lombardi trophy right after I get it. But you need to take a step back and we need to bring in a real team president. Are we anywhere closer to that happening?
No, I'd be very surprised if that happened. But I think it would be, like I said, if it is Jim Harbaugh, then I think that would indicate that maybe a little bit less, because Jim wouldn't put up with anything like that. And I think that's the thing. That's going to be the interesting part. If they do sit down and meet, that's going to be the interesting part. How much are they willing to let Jim be Jim and him do what he needs to do to make it a winner? And that's where I'm really interested, because like you said, John has his hands in a lot of this. And I think people are starting to finally realize that John does share a lot of the blame that Telesco got. But the thing is, like I've said, Dad's not going to blame the son. Dad's going to go on and blame everybody else. But that's going to be the interesting part about this whole thing. Like what is going to come out of this? Like, are you really going to go and get a Jim Harbaugh? Even if they went to go get Bill Belichick, like those are 2 guys that are not going to stand for any of this stuff. Like they're going to be like, look, we've done it before. We have ring. Well, Jim doesn't have a ring per se, but like Jim's been successful no matter where he's been. So his resume speaks for itself. Bill Belichick's 8 trophies speak for themselves. So that's going to be the interesting part about this whole thing. Even if, and that's kind of my point too, is that what is John willing to sacrifice to make this team reach its potential? You have the quarterback, you have the left tackle. I still believe that Derwin James is one of the top players in the NFL, but you have some building pieces. Now you need a coach that can come in and change life for your organization. And that's my question. How much are these guys willing to, what are they willing to punch their grandmother in the face to win a Super Bowl? Like how far are you willing to go? And that's why I think this head coaching hire is really crucial for this family and this organization. That is going to show you their level of commitment pretty soon, what head coach they bring in, and their level. That's going to be their level of commitment to winning.
The article that came out recently from The Athletic, which I'm sure you read, where it had all the quotes from John Spanos about, I'm not in the coach's hair, I'm not in the GM's hair, but I've talked to him every single day. Like, well, which one is it? You can't talk to them every single day and then say you're not in their hair. And then they say they're going to reimagine the hiring process. I agree with Dave. You can't say, you've been with a bad organization since 1995. You know how to run a good team. The Chargers have been crap for the most part since 1995. It's like saying you're going to learn business with Enron. Like, that's not a good idea. Like, that's horrible. So when they say they're going to reimagine the hiring process, does that mean anything to you? Or is that them just talking to make everything seem good, like PR wise?
See, I don't like talking. I like looking at the actions, and that's why I'm kind of staying back from being opinionated about it, because I'm kind of staying back and I want to see what are they really going to do and what's going to come out of all this. Because I mean, it's nice to come out here and say that and do all that, but really what's going to be crucial is who they decide to hire, who the general manager is, who the head coach is, and what their staff is going to look like. I mean, because in a sense, like when Brandon Staley first came in, he brought excitement because they thought, you know what? We just got the defensive side of Sean McVay. He's the guy that's going to come in here. And Brandon said a lot of really good things, but they just didn't come into fruition and you didn't really see it on the field. So I mean, I think I'm going to wait to see what happens with these guys. But as of right now, I mean, you kind of have to look at their past and say, maybe it's business as usual, even though they say it's not. I kind of have to believe until proven otherwise, it is business as usual.
Eckler, Bosa, and Mack. Out of those three, give me the one you most and Eckler. Which one do you have the most confidence is back in 2024?
Oh, Mack, probably.
Mack
on like a one. I mean, the thing is the 15 sacks. I don't know if you can give that up, especially because you can't losing Bosa and Mack with Thule, who's still learning. I think that's going to be way too hard. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if you're going to look at the last 2 years of production, Mack has produced a lot more. So I would say Khalil Mack is back maybe on a 1-year deal. But the thing is too, does Khalil want to come back, or does he want to go somewhere and go chase a trophy and go somewhere else? So that's the thing too. People are like, oh, well, maybe we can bring back, we bring back, like, what if Khalil doesn't want to come back? What if Khalil's like, you know what? I've invested a lot of time. I've put in the work. I have stayed healthy all these 2 years. Everybody said I was broken down, and I have 23 sacks in the last 2 seasons. I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to try and go win a championship. I honestly, I don't think people could get mad at him if he does do that, because he really, I mean, he's about to be 33 years old. He deserves a chance to try and go win a ring, but that's going to be my big question if he wants to come back. Same thing I would say with Keenan Allen. Does Keenan Allen want to come back? Does Keenan Allen want to go to another team and say, you know what? I want to go win a ring. So that's going to be the interesting part about this whole thing. I know Justin Herbert, like everybody wants to play with him and everything, but at the same time, these guys have to. Keenan's been here since 2013, and you talk to him about like the playoff mishaps of this or that, and he just looks at you and he just smiles, and you're like, yeah, like I get it. You understand the look in his face, like you just don't understand how this stuff keeps on happening. So Keenan Allen and Khalil Mack, do they want to come back? That's going to be the big question when it comes to both of them, because I'm sure both of them want to go win a ring, and Keenan obviously deserves a lot more praise than he's gotten in the last few years on where he's at as one of the better receivers in the NFL. But that's going to be the big question when it comes to both of them.
I'd say if Keenan left, that one would hurt. For Charger fans, that would hurt. And he's really arguably the most underrated guy in the NFL over the last 10 years, where, we know how great he is because we watch him all the time. We understand how tough he is to cover. He's not world-class speed, but man, he's always open. But I'd understand wanting to chase the ring. That one would feel weird to see him in a different uniform. And also, if Keenan
his stats are like Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly
he's
right.
up there with guys that we consider some of the best receivers in the NFL. He has stats equal to those, or he surpassed some of their stats. So yeah, the guy's very underrated, and he lost 2 years. One to he lost a year and a half. One to the kidney, 8 games, and then obviously the torn ACL.
Yep. He's that one would be tough. It would be interesting if Keenan left and Joey left in the same year. That'd be it for any connection to San Diego. Those are the last 2 guys to be, San Diego Chargers. For Keenan, that would be tough. For Joey, I think he's already have one foot out the door. Speaking of Joey, I'm going to ask you this question: did you see Joey at the game last week? Did you see him? Because I saw Justin Herbert on the sideline wearing a hoodie. I haven't seen Joey in forever. Don't put your head down, Mar, and shake it. I guarantee he was in San Francisco last night watching his brother play against the Ravens.
No, I see. The thing is, I went to the Bills locker room after the Charger game, so I didn't go in there.
I saw him on a milk carton yesterday.
You saw who?
I saw Joey on a milk carton yesterday. It said, "Where's Joey?" And I was like, San Francisco, probably.
Well, I don't know about any of that, but I did not see him on Saturday. But I mean, some players, like, I didn't see Chris Rumpf either. So I mean, some players go sit some other places, and I don't know. Yeah, so that's my best answer.
Okay. All right, I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
I don't know, Mario. Mario might have a question after me, but my last question is: have you heard of any players in the locker room going at Brandon Staley, like shouting matches, or is that just like a rumor?
No,
did that really happen?
I haven't heard of that. I mean, I've seen some of the rumors, but from that point of view, I haven't heard anything when it comes to shouting matches or anything like that. I at this point, I mean, what would surprise you, especially with what's come out, but for the most part, I think everything was just like whatever, and like nothing where it got to that point. From everything I've understood, it never got to that point. But I saw the thing about the linebackers coach and Brandon, and that was pretty interesting. But I have heard that the part about, like, let's just say Mario's the special teams coach, Josh, you're the offensive coordinator, and I would call you guys out on, and I'm him, I would call you guys out on your stuff, but like if you guys turned around and told me, I'm not listening to it. So I've heard that kind of stuff, like accountability. There you go. There was no accountability. There was accountability going, but no accountability able to come back. And I feel like as a head coach, that's kind of
sounds like a great leader. That's what all great leaders do, Fernando. That's what they're supposed to do.
I mean, but that's the thing though. And I think it was a little bit too much too soon. Like when you're a first time head coach and you want to call the plays, that I have a problem with that, because you're still learning how to be a head coach. Like you have to remember, I have to go with Dave. I have to go with Mario / Ben. I have to go with Josh. And I have to talk to each one of you guys, and I have to learn about the offense, the defense, and the special teams. Like, I cannot be just focused on Dave the whole time. Like, I have to focus on other areas as well. And I feel like that was kind of what hurt them, is that point of view where he was so focused on the defense and not everywhere else. But I get it. I just don't think, I think if you're a first year head coach, I would tell you, if I was John or Dean, you know what? Why don't you go first, become a head coach, and then we'll talk about possibly down the line you calling stuff. But coming in right away, I hope they learn their lesson on that one, because that one, you can't let another guy come in here and try and call the plays. You have to ease into it a couple of years in, first figure out who are you, what your mission is, and what you're going to do. So just my humble opinion.
No, we're with you. We're with you. Fernando, again, thank you so much for the time, man. Wish you a happy new year, and we'll talk to you soon, I'm sure, as soon as that season's over, to get, more insight to what's happening, what the roster is going to look like, how many guys that we're used to seeing in charge of uniforms that you're hearing will be gone. But can't thank you enough again for joining us the day after Christmas.
No, thank you guys. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year. And yeah, if you guys need any Swifty talk, I'm sure after the season's over, I'm sure she'll be there in LA that January 6th or 7th game, whatever it is. So I'll have plenty of insight on Taylor Swift for you guys after that.
There you go.
She'll get the hots for Herbert. Then we have a whole nother dilemma.
Here he goes. All right, guys. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Take care. That's
Yeah,
Fernando Ramirez again from the Sporting Tribune joining us. Always does a great job covering the Chargers. No, we wanted to stay away from that Bosa talk, but I had to bring it up because we just don't see Bosa anymore. Ever since he had that bowl of Raisin Bran, you don't see him around. I'll be honest with you, I don't need him around. It bothers me. He makes $30 million a year and he does nothing. I mean, it'd be always cool. I think it's when you have a guy who's a vet, who's on the sideline, who's unable to play, helping the next guys out that are playing your position, tell you what they see. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just expecting a little too much right there. So we move on from that. Chargers, though, will face the Denver Broncos, of course, this weekend. Then they finish up at home against Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs, as we touched on right at the beginning, they lost to the Raiders, which shocked a lot of people, which makes you wonder again, what's the situation with the AFC West? And well, to say, look at the Chiefs right now. The Chiefs don't look like that team that you always have that feeling one way or another they're going to pull this thing out. There's a crazy stat about the Chiefs this year. 7 times this year, the Chiefs have scored less than 20 points in a game. They only did it 6 times total since Mahomes became the starting quarterback before this season. They've done it 7 times this year. So when you look at KC, when you look at the playoff picture and the way they're moving forward, do you still have that feeling that KC is still the team to beat in the AFC?
No, the Baltimore Ravens are the best team in the AFC. I'm sorry, Mario, to say that. They are. Anybody that watched the game between the Ravens and the 49ers last night, it looks like the Ravens are the best team in the NFL, right? They go to San Francisco or Santa Clara, beat the crap out of the 49ers, who everybody thought was the best team in the league. You watch the Chiefs. The Chiefs have a championship defense. And anybody that watched that game, you would agree. Like, AOC didn't complete a pass since the first quarter till the game ended, and they still won, which was insane. He had like 62 passing yards. But the Chiefs have a championship defense, but that offense sucks. And to see Travis Kelce and Andy Reid, bump each other, take his helmet away, it looks like things are going like really bad in Kansas City, which makes me really happy. And the Raiders are the only team in the division to win a game this past weekend, which is just so crazy as well.
Matt Nagy, gentlemen, he's a gift that keeps on giving. And he's given once again. He's taking the Chiefs and terrorizing that offense. I watch the Chiefs guys and I go, you were banking on the connection of Mahomes and Kelce to carry you the next 2 years until you figure out receiver. I think that's what they did. And they saw the championship they had last year and they rose the Lombardi trophy and they go, okay, we can put Mahomes with any guys off the street at wideout and they're going to be successful. And now we sit here in 2023, December 26th, and go, yeah, that's not the case, man. That is not the case. You need weapons. And when we look at Mahomes, I wonder if you guys saw this too. I'm watching this Raider game. It didn't really look like he was going through his reads as much as he's like, how can I scramble and then just flick something downfield and someone's going to be open? Like, that's just what he kept like looking for instead of going, all right, what's the read on this play? What's the option on this play? And that tells me, one, do you even trust the play that you're running? Do you trust the offense you're running? And do you even believe in the game plan that you have? Because if you're doing that right away, that tells me that, all right, I see you the play call, you're off it. You're Jim McMahon. It is Jim McMahon, by the way. The person I thought was Harbaugh. You are so wrong. Harbaugh came a lot later. It was Jim McMahon that won the 85 Super Bowl for the Bears. Check your facts, buddy. But back to my point, that's going back to you're hearing it, you're not processing it, you don't think it's the right move, so you're moving on from it. And that's what I think Mahomes is doing with his Chiefs offense. You mentioned the Ravens. They are the team to beat. Still not going to bet on them because they screw me, but they are the team to beat right now. They dominated the Niners last night. They're a more physical team. Do I think Lamar deserves MVP? We can get in that debate later. I don't think so. But, I think the Chiefs are far from a team that are this scary team in the AFC. Of all the teams right now that are just climbing up, man, I'd rather face the Chiefs than the Bills. I'd rather face the Chiefs than the Browns. Like, I'd rather face the Chiefs than a good amount of teams in the AFC.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. And as Josh said, I love it. I mean, we've been waiting for this fall for a while. Now, I don't know if it's permanent, if it's a permanent downfall for this team. There are a couple things. If I'll tell you one thing I want to point out, because we've spoken about this on the show numerous times. It really bothered us in the playoffs last year when the Chargers lost to Jacksonville, when Joey Bosa threw his helmet and Brandon Staley picked it up and gave it back to him. I love that fact that Andy Reid would not give it back to him. The fact that he chucks his helmet, then someone tries to give it back to him, whether it was an equipment manager or another coach, try to give it back to him. And he goes, no, do not give that helmet back to Travis Kelce. And I was like, if you can do that with Travis Kelce, a guy who's actually a difference maker, not like Bosa, it's impressive to me that he was able to sit there. And then that bump was like, if I could punch you right now, I'd punch you. That's how angry I am with you. It didn't matter. Old man Andy Reid would have taken a beating, but it didn't matter. He was that angry that he gave him that shove with the arm. I loved I loved every second of it. And I know it sounds kind of crazy that you need that kind of leadership, but you have a coach that people respect in Andy Reid. Andy Reid has that kind of pull. He's been around the league long enough. Kelsey's going in the Hall of Fame. Guess what? So is Andy Reid. When you look at that Chiefs team, we all know what the problem is, right? It's the fact that you've given Patrick Mahomes a bunch of BS wide receivers. You got rid of Tyreek Hill, and you haven't replaced any of those guys with anyone that's substantial, and it's all starting to backfire right now. They misjudged their talent base. At the same time, Kelsey, when you hear talk about retirement, and he's the same age as Gronkowski, which I don't think a lot of people understand that he's 34 years old, that, he's the same exact age as Gronk, who retired a couple years ago. And you're hearing about him with, Taylor Swift all the time and moving in, and the word retirement has come up on his podcast. What's the old saying? When you're thinking about retirement, you've already retired. Kelsey all of a sudden is dropping balls. Doesn't look like the same guy. He's not playing up to Travis Kelce standards. And so if they're on the downfall and he's on the way out, whether they bring in better wide receivers next year, I don't know what the Chiefs are going to be in the future. And Mahomes has been a huge disappointment this season. The entire season, Mahomes has been a disappointment. Am I right, Josh?
Oh, tell my fantasy team. I've been
I know. That's why I said it.
Terrible. Dude, this Chiefs thing is great. Like, they lose on Christmas. Chiefs fans always want to talk about, we get different treatment than everybody else. Yeah, you do. You get better treatment than everybody else. The Chiefs losing on Christmas was awesome. I love to see them miserable. I've been praying on their downfall for a long time. I'm happy it's finally happening. They played with fire. They, like you said, Travis Kelce's 34 years old. They replaced their tackles. They get rid of Tyreek Hill. How many of these things can you do until you're just not a great football team anymore? Relying on Patrick Mahomes to be Superman, yeah, I guess that was a good idea going into this season, but he just can't do everything, and he doesn't even look good himself. I feel like Patrick Mahomes, doesn't have people to throw the ball to, but him himself doesn't look great. I think the Raiders beating the Chiefs was like 9 out of 10 shocking wise, but like Patriots beating the Broncos when the Broncos kind of a playoff team, I guess, was like a 10 out of 10 shock for me. I cannot believe that happened. Did you feel the same way, Mario? Which game do you think was more shocking to you, Raiders or Patriots?
I think if you told me AOC would throw for 62 yards and then win, I'd be like, how did Mahomes snap his knee? That'd be my response. All right, well, Mahomes snapped his knee, it was a blizzard. So that's how. And then Max Crosby had 20 sacks. That'd be my reaction. But I honestly, I think my bigger, because here's the thing, I've said this multiple times, I'll say it again. Divisional games are always weird. They're so weird. Things happen. So that's when I would go, all right, well, divisional game. Things can go sideways. Tony and Pierce fires them up. They get the W. The Patriots thing. This is one of those things where when people, the media and, people like us who go, all right, team's tanking. Head coaches have such big egos. Guys in the NFL have such big egos. They don't want to tank. And anytime they want to get that one more win when they know they're out the door just to say a little screw you up top, they're going to freaking do it. And the New England Patriots, Bill Belichick, doesn't smile, but he smiled a little bit when he beats the Broncos and they go from the 2nd pick to the 4th pick. That is huge for the Patriots. That means you might have to trade up, and you can't just sit pretty and have all your options there at the 2nd pick and just see what the Bears do. I loved it just for the Patriots side. I loved it for the Sean Payton, because now I think the Broncos, Fernando mentioned that the AFC West is kind of for the taking, you'd say, going into next year, because, you said Kelsey may be retiring. Chiefs don't have a great roster on the offensive side of the football. Dude, the Broncos are in a really god-awful spot, right? We think the Chargers aren't in the best spot. Dude, the Broncos, put makeup on a pile of crap. I mean, that's exactly what's going on with the Broncos. Like, they are not a good spot. Peyton's pissed. He's got Russell Wilson. They don't know what to do. The defense is kind of there, but it's kind of not there. I mean, Dave, I look at the Broncos and I go, if I was a fan, I don't know if I could be more frustrated because this was the year. You got Peyton. Everything was going to come back together. The family was going to get together. No more divorce. And it's like, actually, mom came home with a boyfriend.
So when you look at the teams inside this division, right? There's disarray all over the place. You guys are going to think I'm crazy right now. I think the team right now with the least amount of disarray is the Raiders in that division. Right now, everybody likes where they're at with the Raiders, outside of Devontae Adams, who can't get a pass thrown his way, and he's not putting up Hall of Fame numbers. He got the win yesterday against KC. But when you look at Antonio Pierce, the reason I thought that win was really big for the Raiders, and of course I would have rooted for the Raiders over the Chiefs in that game anyway, is Antonio Pierce is winning over that locker room, and he's winning over the fan base, which means, as we said, we all want Harbaugh to be the Charger coach. And so the teams involved in Harbaugh are as possibilities: the Chicago Bears, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Raiders we kept hearing, and then a possibility of going back to Michigan. If the Raiders say, you know what, we can save a ton of money and the locker room is sold on this guy, we need our general manager now to do his job and give him the best players possible, the Raiders might stay with Antonio Pierce through this whole process, which takes Harbaugh out of the running for that job. And now it gets a little bit easier, hopefully, when you're looking at competition. The big question is, the Broncos spent $20 million on Sean Payton. Are their Chargers willing to spend $20 million? $20 million is not a lot of money in today's NFL. As we mentioned, the owners get like $437 million before the season even starts. You want to turn this around, you got to bring in the right coach. The Broncos are in disarray. 3 weeks ago, it looked like they weren't. Right? It looked like after the Miami Dolphins game, they put it together. They're figuring this out. And then this hit the fan 2 weeks ago when Sean Payton went after Russell Wilson on the sideline. And it's like, whoa, there's a Hall of Fame quarterback right there who's been to multiple Super Bowls, and you just got in his face and took away basically all the respect he possibly could have had in that locker room from his teammates. Russell Wilson has to go. So if you're the Broncos going into the end of the season, you're going, who's our next quarterback? Because this is a situation where you are not getting rid of Sean Payton. Sean Payton has made it clear to management that Russell Wilson's no longer the guy. That organization is in disarray. You just lost to the Patriots at home when everybody was watching, and you still had a chance of being in the postseason. How does that possibly happen? That organization is a complete mess right now. It might be, to me, in the worst shape of any team in that division.
I agree with you. And if you're the Raiders, how do you not keep Antonio Pierce as your head coach? He's everything that the Raiders need. If Antonio Pierce was the Chargers coach and the Chargers had a similar effect where the team wanted to rally for him, I'd say keep Antonio Pierce. Jim Harbaugh is exactly what the Chargers need because of that reason. You need somebody to change the culture. We've spoken about it many, many times. Once again, do not feel bad for the Broncos. Don't feel bad for the Chiefs. Don't feel bad for the Raiders when they struggle. I want the Chargers to get the person that's right for them. And I really do feel like at this point in time, Jim Harbaugh is so absolutely the answer. I think it just makes the most sense for him to be with the Chargers. I can't picture him coaching Justin Fields, the Ohio State quarterback. Like, if you're a Michigan fan, who do you root for in that situation? You hate Justin Fields and you love Jim Harbaugh. Like, I don't know what to do here. I would love to see him paired with, Justin Herbert and the Chargers to take an offensive weapon in the first round. And then you really start to get some momentum as a fan and you get excited for next season. Spending money for a head coach, I don't understand why you wouldn't do it. Like you said, it's not much money for them. And if you don't have a head coach, you really don't have anything. So why would you not put your money there? I don't know what else to say about the situation besides go and get him. Why would you not want Jim Harbaugh? What can the Chargers not do to have him? Like, for me, they can offer more than any team that's in the running for Jim Harbaugh. Right, Mario? I know you live in Chicago and you understand what the Bears have to offer, but doesn't it just make the most sense to be with the Chargers? Like, you already have Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I think that's the point of it. Is like, you already have Justin Herbert. Like, you already have a guy that's established as one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Versus, kind of situation in Chicago. Yeah, you get this defense, but you get Fields, who good but questions. I think it's like a good thing to say about Fields, good but questions. And then it's like, okay, but what do you really think about Caleb Williams? Because that'd be your other option. Like, what would you really think about that? And like, do you want him on the team? I kind of questions swirl about that. Also, there's a GM in Chicago right now. Would Harbaugh like to choose his GM? I think that's the thing that Chargers have kind of going for him, is that they can go, well, you get to choose here. You get a little bit more freedom here, where I don't think Ryan Poles would sit there and go, yeah, like I'm willing to give up a little bit more of this for you. Like I just really don't think he'd be willing to do that, especially because I think he's really confident in the team he's built so far and the pieces he's added. Where you look at the Chargers, where like, all right, we need a quick, hard little pivot. Back to the Raiders real quick to it, Pierce. I think that they have to. Like, didn't they kind of big swing and miss when they didn't keep big old
Bisaccia.
Rich? Like, Bisaccia. Like, remember, like he wrote letters to everyone on that team after the playoff run. Like, that was kind of a swing and a miss. You went and got McDaniels because Irsay was being weird at a dinner, and that didn't really work out for you. So I think you kind of have to, if you're the Raiders, like just go with the iron that's hot and try to build the team around them. The hardball thing's heating up, guys. It's getting excited. I'm excited, but I will say this. There's something about Midwest kids. And when you grow up in the Midwest, it gets hard to leave, and you always feel like you owe something. And that's why I think there's a little bit of that in hardball. And I think he's like, well, maybe I owe a little something to Chicago. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. But I think I should be cheering for Michigan to win the national championship, because then I think he's good as gone.
Let me tell you, the Chargers lucked out with Michigan being at the Rose Bowl, because we've heard that while the Michigan Wolverines are in Los Angeles, he has an interview already set up with the Chargers. I mean, it's right there. The Chargers get a chance to talk to him before the week. If I'm with Josh, I would take Justin Herbert. At the same time, when you brought up Caleb Williams' name, Caleb Williams took a shot at the Chicago Bears this past weekend on Instagram. Go ahead, Josh.
He liked a tweet that said that he shouldn't be the quarterback of the Bears or something. It was something anti-Bears, but he liked the tweet.
Yeah, it was basically. Yeah, so I mean, do you want a guy that's telling you right now Chicago's not where I want to go? Do you want Caleb Williams? I mean, Caleb Williams is already. I know you sit there and shake your head, but if it was Caleb Williams talking about another team, I think you would look at it different. Go, I don't want a guy that doesn't want to be here. I want somebody that wants to be here. I want a guy that wants to wear that Bears uniform. Look, I don't know if that means anything. I think Caleb Williams honestly has some major problems. I mean, Caleb Williams has made some crazy decisions over the last 3 months when his team was undefeated at the time and then went right in the toilet. But he said some crazy things about ownership and which teams he was going to, and gave his list of 5 teams. And one of them was the Dallas Cowboys. Well, it wasn't going to be the Cowboys, Caleb. They got Dak Prescott, who's making $50 million a year. You aren't going to the Cowboys. You know, there's certain teams that just didn't make any sense. You think Jerry Jones is going to give you ownership in the Dallas Cowboys? To come out of college before you even get here and say you want ownership, who do you think you are? And then to sit there and fall out of the top 25, completely embarrassing at USC. What makes you think you're that guy in the NFL? You got to prove yourself. You got a long way to go, kid. So I'm not sure that's the guy you want to bring into your system unless that guy tells everyone 100%, I want to be a member of this so-and-so team, because I think he already has one foot out the door. He's not an all-in guy. I need a guy that's an all-in guy, especially as my quarterback. When you look at the Chargers situation, obviously the head coach is going to be the biggest question mark of this entire offseason. Even though this team has a ton of holes on the roster, it's the head coach where I think the fan base is really looking at to say, what is the future of this organization, and is ownership serious about the future of this organization?
Yeah. Mario, do you have any thoughts on the Bears part? I have one more question for you after this.
Yeah, I saw the in the tweet stuff. Like, that could also be motivation for guys like that. Like, oh, I'm gonna put that on my bulletin board if I'm drafted by Chicago. Like, oh, they didn't want me, or like, this organization sucks. Like, I don't look at any of that stuff. I think Caleb's been under like a microscope and gets like a lot of just attention and like, leaks where, like, all right, is that accurate? Is that not accurate? And then I don't know. His expectations were so high into the season. He was put under such a microscope. I think a lot of stuff got spewed out that isn't entirely accurate.
What about the things you can control, like crying in front of everybody with your mom? That you said Midwest guys are tough. You think Bears fans want a quarterback that's going to cry in his mom's arms after they lose to the Packers?
Okay, well, you didn't have to pick out the Packers and all that. That was just kind of felt like an attack. Look, dude, the crying, it was a season from hell for them. The defense was like really one of the worst defenses in all of college football. Like, Sirianni cried in the Super Bowl. Like, he cried.
How's he
Dan
doing this
Campbell,
year?
still in the playoffs. Dan Campbell like cried.
Did he freeze?
Yeah, he froze.
Did he cry?
Look, I think he's crying right now. I think he
Cried into his computer.
Yeah.
He's crying into the keyboard and froze the whole thing up. Look, here's the deal, man. For me, Josh, this guy is a big crybaby, and he's a troublemaker, and he has major problems, man. So the way I look at it is, I'm not so sure I want that guy on my team, especially if I'm a Chicago Bears fan. I thought they're supposed to be tough. I'm with you. I think Mario's making excuses. Look,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
All right, hold on.
Come
I know
on.
he's going to jump on eventually. The screenshot of his face right here is hilarious.
It's sad.
Yeah, it is sad. He said something earlier, and hopefully he jumps back on to answer this. Lamar's your MVP, right, for this season?
Yeah, Lamar is.
He has to be. How could Lamar Jackson not be the MVP for this year?
He's MVP, and Mario jumped back on. I'll tell you he isn't, because he just doesn't want to admit he's wrong. It couldn't be more wrong. Lamar is the MVP of this season. It's not Purdy. It's not Dak Prescott. It's no one else. And I'm sorry, head to head. And now that he went against the Niners at San Francisco, he passed Christian McCaffrey too. He is the MVP. It's a no brainer. Lamar Jackson's the MVP this season.
What about Tyreek?
That's the way.
Do you think Tyreek has a shot?
No, I don't think so, because Tyreek. No, I don't. I would have said Tyreek. Yeah, if he made it through the entire season, not being injured. Lamar Jackson, best record in the league. You know, we all know he sat out basically last year when he wasn't happy with his contract, and now here he comes back, gets paid, and he leads that team into a fantastic record. But overall, man, I tell you, look at what the Ravens are, and I think surprised a lot of people, including myself, that they're as good as they are. And I'm with you what you said at the beginning of the show. The Ravens are the best team in the AFC, and I don't think anybody doubts that right now.
No, not at all. I'm really concerned for Mario's health because he hasn't been on for a few minutes now.
You think he's stroked out?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what's going on in Indiana. I've never been to Indiana.
There you go.
Yeah, his Wi-Fi went out. He just wrote to us.
Did
all
he?
right. That's
all
fine.
right. So look, we'll wrap up the show. When we come back on Thursday, we'll make our predictions, of course, for the next weekend games. Big Thursday night game to talk about as well, and then we're going to break down the playoff picture for you, how it looks with 2 games remaining for each team. So there's Mario right there. I was just about to close out the show.
Yeah. Shout out to all the crappy Wi-Fi in America. Up yours. Hope you had a piss poor Christmas. Everyone that works in Wi-Fi, you suck right now. Sorry, a little anger coming, but didn't cry.
All right. Well, I was just saying, we're going to close out the show, Mario. We'll be back in 2 days. We'll break down the playoff picture. We'll talk about the upcoming games. We'll pick games, and we'll let you know. One of us, the 3 of us, did very well on their picks. We'll let you know who that is on Thursday. You might want to listen to going into the weekend. But otherwise, again, thank you for listening to the show through the Bolt City, through the Odyssey app, Bolt City podcast. Thank you so much to Odyssey, and at the same time, YouTube, your comments. We greatly appreciate them. Some people upset that we use the word holidays and not Christmas. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry your feelings got hurt, but that's just the way it went. So if you feel better on the 26th, I hope you do. Maybe next year we'll try and be a little bit better. But we'll be back, and I appreciate the comments. We'll try and answer every single one of those questions for you at the same time. But if we're missing it on Harbaugh, let us know who you want to be the Chargers' new head coach outside of Jim, and where you want to see your new GM come from. So for Mario Heron, Josh Palais, I'm Dave Palais. We'll talk to you in 2 days.